Welcome to the Big Cats Women's Program 30th Anniversary podcast. I'm your host Simone Wern, and over the next few episodes we'll be celebrating 30 years of women's baseball at the Springvale Lions Baseball Club. Join us as we share the stories and the moments that have helped shape our program and make it what it is today. This week in our first episode, we're excited to be joined by the OGs, Jess and Beck, as we look back to the late 1990s when Minnie and Dodsey began their Big Cats journeys. So come along and help us celebrate what has been a great 30 years full of memories and laughs. Let's get into it. All right, welcome to our first podcast, Dodsey and Minnie. How are you going?
Good. Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks for being here. I should also mention Lucy is joining us today and probably really describes our women's program when we've got other family members sitting in the podcast studio in order to make it happen. I mean, the realities are that things have changed over your time in the program, guys, both with families of your own. Baseball's probably playing a different role for you, but you're still here and you're still loving it. So on behalf of myself and the club, a big thank you for giving up your time. We are here whenever you're watching this at home. It's the middle of the day, a work day. And these guys have taken their time out of the day to be here, so we really do appreciate it. 30 years has really gone pretty quick. We've been sitting here for 10 minutes, sort of going over some history and telling stories, some good ones and maybe some bad ones, some that we will share and some that we won't. But I've sort of been reflecting over the last few months thinking, wow, here we are 30 years later, and I don't necessarily think we all thought we'd be here 30 years later, but it's a testament to the work that's been done by a lot, and particularly for you two. And I will say one of the reasons I wanted you here, you both asked me, why are we here? Why are we the first to sit in the podcast studio? Well, you're the OGs. Outside of myself, Dodza, you're the next longest serving member of the women's program. It'd be great to start off by you telling us a bit about when you started, how long you've been involved in, and maybe a little bit about the journey so far for you.
Well, I got convinced by you in high school to come over from softball. And then, it's just, ever since, it's just something I do every year.
Yeah, so 27 years, it's a long time for me to keep convincing you. I think I stopped after a couple of years and you just came back.
Yeah, you probably wanted to get rid of me. It just didn't work out for you, sorry.
We will talk a little bit more about people trying to get rid of you later, and it wasn't me. But Minnie, tell us a little bit about your journey. So you and Mandy, I think, are next, sitting at about 25 years. What's your story been? It's been a little bit different to Beck's, but tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely different to Beck. So I've come from a baseball family, so third generation baseball family. But I started at a club local to me. When I was playing, the clubs weren't heavily in women's, and I guess my first memory of meeting you, I would have been about 10 or 11, and my uncle was coaching the first ever women's program at Springvale, and you were pitching as like a tiny baby in Division 2 at Altona. So I remember seeing that. And then from there I kept playing at my local club, and I think I turned 14 and you probably picked me up, and I moved and I played winter under 16 juniors under Mick and your brother Scott, and then from there we started playing D grade and women's winter in the first women's winter, and you said come over to Springy, so that was it. So late 1999 2000 kind of season, and I've been there ever since.
Love it. There's a few things I want to talk about today. Obviously, we've got limited time. We could talk for hours. As I said, we already started before the podcast retelling stories and reliving great memories. Some not so great, some really amazing. But there's a few things I want to touch on. And the first one for you, Dodsey, is there was a trade attempt circa late 1990s, maybe 98, 99.
Is that early?
It was that early, and there was a great club legend from the men's program, Miles Barnden, a.k.a. Bumpy, who did attempt to trade you. What are your memories of that?
It wasn't a very good attempt, and I think it extended to him looking at the stats at presentation night and going, we need to trade her. Who's this Dodsey? Who's this Rebecca?
It's funny because I remember Gordon Gorilla Pierce, our scorer for the first sort of period of time at the club. Great club person and a great member of our program for a number of years. He used to print the stats and put them on all the tables at presentation night. Some years we all thought that was great because we'd had a great season. Some years it was not so great and we really hated turning up and seeing those printouts. I think there was one year I was like, can you please not bring them? Yeah. So I do remember that, and I remember turning up I went into the club rooms after a game one week and he just said, look, I've talked about this before, but this Dodsey girl, like, she's not getting any better. Like, I've seen her stats. I saw them last year. What are we going to do about this? Like, what are you doing about it? And at the time, I don't think we'd won a game for 3 years. And I said, Nate, I'm just trying to get 9 players. In fact, I'm trying to get 7 players, not 9. Like, I just want to field a team. So I agree. I don't think his trade attempt was really... There was a lack of commitment, but I think that tells you something. I think he secretly wanted you at the club and was just trying to rile you up a little bit, which is what he does.
I think he knew you by your nickname, not your real name, at that time.
And
then he realised who you were because you were next to him or
I was
something.
standing next to him at the time, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
He backpedaled a little.
But, you know, Bumpy still likes to bring it up every now and then.
He
He's
does.
got a good memory, that man.
Yeah.
I remember too, there was a game, it was your birthday. I don't know if you remember this.
I remember nothing.
But there was a game where it was your birthday and Mandy had organised a cake, bless her, and Bumpy happened to be watching. So after the game, Bumpy came out and actually we sang happy birthday and he gave you the cake, and, you know, I think it was his attempt or Mandy's to you know, clear the air. Like, I didn't trade you happy birthday, here's a cake. I thought that was really funny at the time. That was a few years later.
I feel like you did take credit for the cake. Sorry, Mandy.
I think he did, yeah. And that was, big thanks to Mandy. She's good with remembering those things. Minnie, moving on, you can see on the screen cellar dwellers, and I put that on there because the first period of time at the club, you know, it's easy when we look back now, really 20 plus years of some pretty good results and successes. The first years wasn't like that. I mean, we barely got 7 or 8 on the field at once, let alone won a game. They were pretty far, you know, they didn't happen often, right? So what was it like, the feeling around the club at the time, and what are your memories of that period?
It was definitely a challenging time, but I think because we were also kind of young and probably happy-go-lucky, ambition wasn't necessarily in the forefront of our mind. It was just more that relationship and that camaraderie. I remember turning up and, you know, we'd sit and play hacky sacks, or we'd kick a footy around. We'd often just be mucking around wrestling. Pretty sure I concussed you at one stage. I remember
Twice.
it. Yeah, maybe, but shouldn't have, you know, come at me. But anyway, but we had lots of fun. We probably weren't the best out there, and, you know, I'm really glad there's a 7-run rule in place now, because at the time there wasn't. So we might go a whole game where the innings just literally wouldn't end. Like, they'd be scoring run after run, and there'd just be nothing we could do about it. You know, yourself and Jade would be pitching, and then you'd swap, and we'd be going up against Tarina and Emma Binks and, like, some really phenomenal women's players who paved the way for us. And they were throwing really, really hard, and you never saw anything like that, and it was really intimidating, and they had some amazing programs back then. But I think we just got out there. We had a good time. You know, we had Pruis out there, and she was always just singing in the outfield or, like, buzzing a tune, and she just mellowed us out even when it was, like, quite a stressful time. So I think as much as we wanted to win, I think, and it was a driver, I know specifically for you, we just had a really good bunch of girls that we were happy to have a great time with, you know. And I still even see, like, Bridge, who doesn't come around to the club as much anymore, but I see her every week. And it's just good to see these women that, you know, we were all 14, 15, 16, just having a good time, kicking a footy.
It's funny you say that, because as competitive as I am, and anyone listening to this probably understands or has some understanding of my white line fever, but even looking back and people ask me, I say it was such a hard time, and I feel like it was. Like, there were 45, 46-0 losses.
Yep.
We couldn't get anyone out. Like, it was hard, but my memories of back then were just that it was fun. Like,
Yes.
God, we laughed and we just had fun, and we'd all go to training because it was fun. And there was a bit of, particularly from myself and maybe Jade at the time, of wanting to get better. And, there was an Australian team that came up and a Vic team, and there was this aspirations to get better. But at the core, it was let's have fun. And I think that's the basis of our culture that we've created over 30 years is fun, want to turn up. Whether you want to get better or whether you want to be the best player ever, it's actually not necessarily about that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's at the bones of what we do. And I'm really proud of that, and I'm sure you guys are too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next sort of little bit here, I've found some photos in the archives. Ladies in red, as we should say, because there's a few. But I've got some photos from the archives I wanted us to look at. I've picked this photo from the archives. What are your memories of this, Dodza? What can you tell us about it?
I remember it was your idea to dress in red.
Oh, really? I believe I surveyed the group, and this was my number one recommendation. We had such a poor season. We made so many errors. The scorebook was full of red, so we decided we should dress in red. And Bill Ray, sitting proudly in the middle of his girls with his can of VB there, he was all for it because he agreed. He didn't think we'd done very well at all. But again, for a season full of errors where we probably didn't win a game, we might have scraped one. No, I don't think we won a game that year. Yeah. We had a ball.
Yeah, we were pretty happy.
You can see there that obviously myself, you and Mandy are still playing at the club. Deb and Shani are still around at the club. Emma's still scoring. So it's pretty cool to see all these years later. So that I believe was the year 2000. And I remember that because the team bought me, I was coaching, and the team bought me a suitcase because I made the Aussie team and I was going to Canada. So there's another photo that goes with this collection of me sitting in the suitcase. And again, thank you, Mandy. That was Mandy's idea. But, a great season of the ladies in red, and that's a very famous story. You can kind of see the tinge. Prue put colour in my hair at Mandy's house before that night. That was presentation night at the club.
And her own hair.
And her own, yeah. And hers is, look...
I think she stayed that way for quite a few months.
Wasn't my best night, but it was good fun. Yep. Minnie, I brought up this photo for you to just... This is one of the only photos I could find, actually, that was you, Dodsy, and myself together. And then what I thought was really cool about this was obviously Jazz to the left of Dodsy there, Beato's in the front. We've got one of our imports. And then Janine is down the front with Lily and Bree, who are looking very young. So this photo is reasonably old. But what are your memories? You coached the twos for quite a few years. You played sort of in every team.
Yep.
Talk to me about this photo.
It's like I kind of like looking at it at the moment. I'm trying to figure out what year it is because we had Tomoko out there who was the import and she was living with us, and that's with me and my family, and it was for Becca and I, it's before kids. So it's at least 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago, roughly guessing. And I mean, yeah, Div 2, and that was a whole lot of fun that season. So I definitely miss playing with Beto and Kat. And I know sometimes Kat pops up in my messages and like, I really want to come back and things like that, but she's busy with her life and her family. So, but she's always welcome back. And then I forget how long I've been playing with Cass for. So it's really funny. You kind of forget how long you've been playing or you've been friends with these people. But that season was a really fun season. I know Tomoko played in Division 1 and probably helped out a bit in Division 2. And she was obviously a phenomenal player that we had. But yeah, that was a really fun year in Div 2. It might have been my first year coaching or one of those first years that I started in the coaching panel as Mick started to step away. And that was really a different perspective for me joining the coaching team and figuring out my philosophy and how I am as a coach or a mentor and a player, and definitely is how I join the mix of our coaching panel. And Simone, or some of you are aware, I'm probably labelled a bit more of the nurturing coach. So I not necessarily there for the white line fever or anything, but I'm there for the holistic development of our players, so emotional, physical, and also for the love of the game. But yeah, that's where that kind of sits my niche, is Division 2, Division 3 players.
it's an interesting point you raise because, as I said, I've been reflecting for a few months while I was sort of preparing to have these discussions and start to celebrate the 30 years for the women's program and the 50 obviously for the club. But the way the club and the opportunities I've had have impacted me as a person, and even in my job, for me outside of my sport and my job with my family, the lessons I've learnt, the things I've developed and the way that I've changed. I think the early days being in that position where I really wanted to win, I had high aspirations, but I had fun. So I sort of learnt to deal with the failure and I learnt some coping mechanisms. I still, got a bit angry. And there were things maybe I didn't always do right, but I think I did learn a lot of great lessons that helped me become who I am. And I think you talking about the fact that you sort of almost, like me, were sort of thrown into coaching. I'll do it because someone needs to do it. But it actually does provide some great opportunities for you as a person as well.
Oh, absolutely. And being a player coach is a whole new level of challenges that it faces. So it's like you're trying to figure out your coaching style while at the same time thinking about your own gameplay and how that works. So it's really hard. People just think you just go out and do it, but you don't get a minute to stop and then, throw in the mix as we start to evolve. We're mums who are player coaches and might have our children on the sidelines and things like that. So, hats off to any women's player out there who is a player coach and is trying to play their own game as well as mentoring 8 other players around them and keeping everybody's spirits high because, as you know, as a coach, you have to be the calm within the storm. So you can't necessarily be angry because somebody's dropped the ball or be angry because they've made an error because you have to maintain that calm within your team and really be a duck on water because you want your team to be able to succeed. And if they see that you've let you're disappointed in them, they're going to feel that and then it's going to affect the next play and the next play and the next inning. So as a player coach, you have to be incredibly controlled and incredibly grounded and it's really quite challenging. And I think it's evolved me as a person as well as a player and a coach.
Absolutely. This one was one I threw in because it's one of my favourites and obviously I have had a few injuries over the last 15 years and I people ask me how much I regret that one game of football that I played, but I really, outside of the first 6 or 12 months where I was a little bit depressed about having that knee injury, I've had so much great opportunity and to get to be on that team with you guys who I'd played with for a long time and we'd been trying to win a premiership in the twos for a while, but EJ and then Jacko and Toro happened to be there to help out. And then we had the kids, Balin and Lil and Hanami and Maddie. But then Cass and Val and it was a really fun team. I wasn't around for every game that season, but I was there, for a little while and then for the finals and we won. And that was a great memory. And you can see Henry in the front there. So this is 2018.
He looks
this
about
photo,
2 or 3, so that'd be right, 2018.
Yeah, at Cheltenham, but a really cool memory that I thought I'd bring up. And then a couple of other things before I quiz you guys on a few things. Minnie, you've been really lucky. It's been great. You've taken on great responsibility with imports, but you've also been lucky because you've created friendships, you've created great relationships and almost created this other part of your family now. Anna Kimbrell, obviously amazingly talented Team USA baseball player, but at the bones of Anna, she's just a great human.
Yes.
And I feel really lucky that we got her to play with us, but also to become part of our family. What's it been like for you and particularly with your kids to have these great people come in and sort of join the Adkins Barber family?
Yeah, I guess it probably stems actually when I was playing at Mulgrave Baseball Club as a junior. We actually had a couple of imports through the Mulgrave Club. My parents did, so it's not an unfamiliar concept for me. And obviously, probably back in the 90s, it was probably pretty rare to have some Japanese baseball players living with you and things like that. But so when the opportunity arose at Springvale, myself and my husband were like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. So we had Tomoko out first, and we were both kind of the same age. I think we were probably mid to late 20s, so that was quite a good relationship. But obviously, the years have evolved. Trav and I have probably end up being a little bit more of a maternal and paternal kind of figure. So,
Old.
yeah, old. So like in the, having Sawa most recently, having her being like 18, 19.
MVP.
Yeah, being 18, 19, Trav and I were definitely more parents towards her and she, having a teenager in the house. But having these imports have been so good with our family, Momo, who lived with us for quite a while, she used to look after Henry, and she disclosed to me probably when she came back to visit one of the years, she's like, when I used to look after Henry, I used to only speak to him in Japanese, and she was like so ashamed of this little secret. And I was like, Momo, that's awesome, mate. Like, you were subconsciously teaching Henry Japanese. I think that's fantastic. And we had Anna come back and visit us recently, which was really cool. But my daughter Winnie was like, why is Anna in Sawa's room? That's Sawa's room, And I'm like, babe, Sawa's not here anymore. This is Anna. And Anna turned up and she got in the car and turned around and it was Winnie in the back. And she goes, oh, my God, I've just gone in a time machine. That's Henry, because she was out when Henry was 3 and now she's out when Winnie's 3. But, yeah, the relationships are phenomenal, even with the parents of the people who have stayed with us. Trav and I are friends on Facebook, and I know I can – whenever Trav and me and the kids are going to go to Japan, I know that we have...
You'll have accommodation. Free dinner.
Tour guides all around the world.
Absolutely.
And we're really fortunate. So we're just saving for that time. But it's an amazing experience, and I think it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort, and financially it is an impact having another body in your house. But at the same time, it's such a cultural experience, even like America and Australia are fairly similar, but, just cooking different foods and having relationships with people. So, yeah, we're always up for doing it again and again, no matter, what happens.
We've got that recorded
again
and again.
Lucky. Every second year. We only take someone every second year. That's also on the record now. We can't do every year. It's
great.
Too much.
The club is so appreciative, but I do know that, in return, there's some great reward particularly for the family, I think, rather than just you now, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I'll put it on record too. If any female baseball players around the world want to come out to Springvale and are happy to be a live-in nanny, I've got 2 beautiful kids, a little bit of a handful, but 2 beautiful kids. There's always a spot available at the Big Cats and in my house. So
love it.
Yeah,
we've got that on record too.
Yeah.
I've got you and Shelley here, and again, this is just really the connection, the creating relationships, and Shelley's moved on to Queensland, and she's married now, and she's doing other stuff, and she's doing really well, but she'll always be part of the family, and you guys will always have a connection. We will always have a connection, and anytime we're up there, we'd go and visit her, and that's what I think I love about the club is, there was a period, Minnie, where you took a few years off and there were other things in your life you needed to do, but you knew you could sort of come back. And, obviously Dodsy's got her 3 beautiful kids, and there were periods where she couldn't be around or couldn't play, but, you can just come back, and that's where it's your place and you can fit in anytime. And I think that's one of the things I love about the club. Dodsy, you've spent most of your career, probably the last 20 years in the 2s. And the last couple of years moving into the 3s. But for you, I think coming from softball, I think initially it was sort of like, well, I think you thought the game was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we played a bit of high school softball together, and that game's hard.
Especially when we were the only 2 people who could actually throw and catch.
That's true. That didn't help. But it was kind of almost the same at baseball at one point.
Yeah.
But look, you've had your ups and downs, but I think overall for you too, I don't think you had aspirations to play high level, but you spent a lot of time turning up, wanting to get better and wanting to help the people around you, and I think you've been able to do that. Have you felt like you've been a bit of a leadership figure around the place, even maybe the last 10 years?
I think accidentally. I don't know if it's just from age and just sort of knowing what to do, knowing what play is or knowing what the expectation is.
Yeah. I think a lot of us too develop leadership skills by being thrown into the fire. And I say this to my students here at work a lot. You have leadership skills, and they say, well, no, I don't. I didn't do a course on leadership. You didn't teach me leadership. I said, no, but you went and ran a group project. You went and created a relationship with this industry partner. You went and did this. You're a leader. And they're like, oh, but I don't want to be a leader, or I didn't decide to be a leader. But we often don't decide. I certainly didn't necessarily want to run a women's program and be here 30 years later talking about all the things we've done, but it happened organically. And I think that's one of the cool things too about you guys is that you just do stuff. You know, a lot of people talk about things and say, oh, we're going to go and do this. We just did it. And there was probably a choice of this is hard and I'm not going to. But here we are. And again, that's one of the things I really respect about you guys. And whether we all get along all the time or not is you know, remains to be seen. Probably not all the time. But at the end of the day, we all respect each other for what we've done and what we continue to do. So that's really important. Love the bling on the right there, Dodsy. That was $2 from Uncle Bucks. I went through 3 of those that season.
Yeah,
because
somebody kept on breaking it.
$2, they're not great quality, but
it's the best plastic gold you can get, though.
Thank you. $20 on Amazon, $2 at Uncle Bucks. This photo is the last one I wanted to show, and this just really, to me, epitomises what we're all about. And I've said this before, you know, you guys have got your own families. I've got my own family now, and families are the most important thing. They're the priority above and beyond anything else. And so baseball plays a different role in your life, and I'm finding that now in my own life as well, like you guys have already done. But it's still an important part, and it's still a place you can go. I know, Dodsy, for you, it's a great place you can go and maybe just go and do your own thing on a Saturday.
You keep your identity. It's part of just, it's good to have that break and have your own space.
Yep.
Even more so when you have a family, because you don't get your own space. But it's just good to keep that identity going of things you like to do.
Yep. And for you, Minnie, too, like you've got the family side of it, but running a business that's obviously doing really well and has developed and grown a lot in the last 5 years. For you, it's almost, you know, even in a coaching role now, and you're taking on the coaching role this season, it's almost a break to get away from the grind of trying to run a business, look after the family, do all those things, to go and do something that you sort of love and is a passion, but it's not the end of the world, you know. It sort of it plays a role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why I have gone, and for Becca as well, we've gone down to Division 3. I mean, sure, we'd love to play in Division 2, but often attending trainings was not a priority for work and children and life, where the 3s, we could turn up, we could have a great time, we could mentor, and we can be there to support everyone. But yeah, I also like to think of it as we're empowering other young women to be able to continue playing sport for as long as they like, for as long as they want to, with children, without children, with a family or without. And like Becca said, to maintain your identity and to keep a part of you, because as you do go into motherhood, you can very easily lose a sense of yourself. And when we have a lot of the Japanese imports come out, that's pretty much the first thing they say to me. They're like, you play, but you have children. But you have a job. And I'm like, yes, but I still play, you know, and it's still part of me. And whether it's I'm playing and I'm training and I'm playing my best version, or I'm coming and I'm playing in, I guess, like more of a beer league or a social league context, we're still there. And that's 2 hours that I can be a version of myself that I've been for my entire life.
It's an important thing that you mentioned there. And the club wrote an article for Mother's Day acknowledging the mothers who are still playing or are still around the club and what they contribute, and how hard it is sometimes to commit to doing other things, because in reality we all want to go and do our own thing and get away and have a break, but in practicality it's not always that simple, and in fact it's quite hard. You know, I'm going to go to baseball training now after you've been to work, after you've dealt with the kids and done all those things. Kids are great, by the way, but sometimes you have to deal with stuff that's hard. But I think one of the things you mentioned that's super important and part of the culture for us is that the young kids and even the older women seeing people who have kids still turning up and at all levels. So what I thought was really great this year is we had mothers in every division. So our Division 1 team, we had 5 mothers. Division 2, we had 3 or 4. Division 3, we had 3. It's not just I'm going to just be a mother and go play the 3rds. I'm just going to be a mother and go play the 2s. I'll be a mother and I'll play at the highest level. It's, you know what, anyone can decide to play where they want and there's a place for you, and we'll support you, and you can fit in.
100%.
And I love that about what we've created. That's really important to me, I think, and to all of us.
Yeah, and an inclusive club, like the fact that we have a space set up in the club rooms for children if they need to be there to sit, or if I'm playing on the back diamond, which was quite far away from the canteen, my son is quite safe and quite comfortable in there, and the people in the canteen, if he orders something, you know, I have like $1,000 worth of chips I've got to pay for at the end of the game, but he's comfortable to go there, and it is a safe place that if your kids are there and you're playing, there are other responsible adults who have your back and who will help keep your children safe if you need to, so you can be on the ground playing your version of your game.
Yeah, we do appreciate your contribution to the canteen too.
Yes.
Thank you, Henry.
Yeah.
Look, as I said, we could talk for hours, but I know we've got a short time frame. What I want to do, and I'm going to do with every guest we have, is a bit of a segment that I'm going to call 30 in 5. It's 30 years in 5 minutes. I hope this goes for 5 minutes. It could go for longer. Let's try and keep it short though, but I've got a few questions here and I want you to both give me your answers. So the first one is your favourite on-field memory so far.
Mine's probably going to be one of our finals playing at Malvern, where I was second base and I'd been working all season with Shay, and we'd managed to get a double play during that game, maybe even a couple, and we were struggling that game with our top lineup, but actually 7, 8, 9 hitters, which was one of me, in the final ended up winning that game. So that was probably one of my favourite on-field memories.
I remember that game. It was great. Jodza?
I don't know. We've got funny ones, but I don't know. Favourite on-field. I think just turning up every week and getting to play with people that I really admire.
Yeah.
I think that's like being able to get out there every week.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a favourite. I think every week, turning up every week and being able to
that's pretty cool that in the 27 years you've been here, you can say that just turning up is great.
Yeah.
I love that. I'll take that as your answer. Favourite off-field memory, if you have one?
I'll say Elephant Wheelbarrow, Linda, and the...
Some good off-field memories with Linda that we won't put on record.
Yeah, so many off-field. So, yeah, probably... Jeebus, like probably a Calcutta night, I'd say, in there, and just like those old games we used to play with that horses game, and having Chevy out there and with our big guns rolling that fast up against the boys, and just having a lot of fun Christmas events and all the club functions that we've had over the years. Cool. A Halloween night.
Good answer. Favourite teammate?
Do we have to say our world wife? Like Becca's my wife. So she's gonna be my favourite player.
I think
we're life wives.
Can we go in like segments of like 10 years?
Both gonna need to say each other now. Else it's gonna be
I wouldn't pressure
really awkward now.
Yeah.
Oh
okay.
well, Jess, of course.
Yeah, we're besties on and off the field.
There's also others too.
Yeah.
Like combined.
Yeah, combined.
I have to say Ella.
Yeah, Ella.
Emma.
Yeah.
Bridget.
Yeah.
Bridge.
Bridge. Yeah, love
Man-child.
Bridge. Saw her this week.
Okay,
you.
so we're taking each other.
We're
taking.
All right.
Number one, each other. Yeah.
Best player you've played with. You're both going to say each other. This will be interesting.
No.
Oh, that was quick.
Depends how you define best.
Yeah.
Like, because we've played with some of the best players in the world, literally, you know. So playing with Rissa and Arbe and Anna and like so many. And obviously Shay and yourself and Jade and Kat and Ella, and the list goes on.
It's a hard question to answer. I
think, like, as much as I love Beck, I think somebody who's really defined my game and my position as a first baseman is going to be Arbe. So I miss playing with Arbe, and every Tuesday night Arbe and I would just sit and do drills for 30 minutes to an hour when it was starting to get dark on first base drills. And so I definitely miss our little bestie Arbe.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It can't be me for everything.
I don't know. There's probably 3 or 4 that I'd say, which is really hard when you've got a best. Like, I'd say you throughout the years.
Did not pay her to say that.
This is not a paid promotion. Ella. Yeah, I think Shay, no doubt.
Yeah.
Like, she's amazing.
It's a hard one. There's been a lot. So I think they're very good answers.
I think maybe we need to break it up into 10-year brackets. Like,
That's a
who
good
is
idea.
in this age bracket?
94 to
Yeah.
2003. I'll rethink that. Funniest person at the club.
Ever.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Bumpy.
Yeah, Bumpy's pretty funny.
Yeah, the
I
trade attempt.
Yeah.
think probably the period for me that's probably been the funniest period was me and Shelley doing a lot
Yeah.
of things, and definitely to the point where we probably bewildered Shanners a lot with our extreme comedy or the things that we were discussing on a regular basis, but that certainly formed our friendship. So I think me and Shelley.
Shelley's got to be up there on the list. She was very entertaining.
She's a funny lady.
Very funny. Favourite coach?
We're both probably going to have the
Billy
same
Ray.
answer. Billy Ray.
Yeah.
One of the first people to teach me how to hold a bat properly at the age of 16, and it shouldn't have taken 9 or 10 years to learn how to hold a bat right properly, and it took Billy Ray about 95 seconds. So, yeah, Billy Ray.
I feel
And-
like there'll
and
be a lot
throwable.
of the OG sort of brigade who are going to
Yeah.
mention Billy,
Just
but that's
throwing
cool.
a ball.
Yeah.
All the drills to throw
All
a
the
ball.
drills.
Yeah, love it. And one final question. I've called it the Mick Wern question, and I wanted to find some circus music, but I ran out of time. But it was... If anyone has been to one of our games before, they would have heard whether he was coaching or spectating, whether he'd had no beers or more than 10. He would potentially be singing the circus music and getting frustrated with what he saw. Was there a moment in time, if I did the circus music, that you've thought of a moment that Mick may remember as being quite comical?
The funny thing about Mick is that he always respects good baseball, and it doesn't matter what level you personally are at. If you're not giving your personal best, that's when that music will come out. So if you're doing stupid things that are not great. So he would never compare you and I as the same player. I would be compared to as my own player and my own version. And if I didn't reach my own version of my personal best, that's when that music will come out. And if I didn't use my brain, and he hated that, and he used to always say, women are supposed to be smarter than men, but I don't know why you're making these stupid mistakes. So it wasn't always about skill. It was about the mental game and the thought behind it. And if we threw the ball around, that's when we'd get that music. Or if he'd reenact because we didn't do our drop step right, that's when that comes to me for Mick.
And you'd expect it.
Yes. It's
Like, you'd almost start playing the music in your own head.
yeah. You'd just and then you'd stand next to him. If you stood close to him, you wouldn't necessarily see you because you'd be in your blind spot. You don't want to stand exactly opposite
opposite.
Mick, and you just got to cop it on the chin. Like, you just got to
Love
cop
it.
it.
So you're saying your own game was when Mick
Yeah.
would... Yep.
If you failed your own game.
Dodza, you mentioned a good one that I thought not many people would remember, but there was a game at Moorabbin and Megan Van Ruin filling in... She actually played a season.
Yeah.
She was a fill-in from high school. So it
of
would
your
have
many
been 97,
friends that got roped in?
97, 98. She was playing right field and a ball got hit to right field and she'd forgotten to wear a belt. So as she went to catch this very straightforward catch, her
Lost her
pants started to fall down. So instead of catching the ball, she stopped to try and pull the pants up and then obviously didn't catch it. And I can just hear that music playing. That's a really funny one. Any others for you that you remember?
No, just any time that there was that clear mental error, it would just,
Yeah, you couldn't get anything past him.
You didn't
could
even need to stand near him. You'd know he'd be doing it.
Yeah, and you'd hear it. You'd hear the music or you'd hear him commenting.
Yes.
I want to thank both of you for coming in today. It's been a great chat. As I said, we could speak for hours and hours, and there's so many stories. And I'm sure we'll celebrate and talk more about them during the season when the season approaches for summer 24-25. But on behalf of the club, a big thank you. And a big thank you for all that you have and continue to contribute. You're really important parts of the program, and you're really important parts of the culture that we've created, and I think that we continue to create. And here's to the next 30 years.
Yes.
And we'll be sitting here with a bit more grey hair, although Minnie might dye it away. But
No, that's natural.
I do.
I'm wearing a hat
That's
because
natural.
you can start to see my grey
Yeah.
hair. But look, I'm
Mere natural highlights.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the season to come. And again, thank you, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.